A massive prison riot broke out in a town in Brazil, leaving dozens dead and some decapitated. This was one of the worst prison riots in Brazilian history, and it started on Sunday in Manaus. Now, this is an Amazonian town, and this is not the first time that a prison riot made headlines in Brazil. The problem seems to get worse each time it occurs, but apparently there were actually two prison riots. One was worse than the other, and the one that was worse happened in Iadarola Penitentiary. Let me give you the details on that. A local gang, aided by former inmates out on parole, smuggled guns into the prison and took 74 prisoners and 12 guards hostage. Wow. A local gang called the Northern Family attacked prisoners with ties to Brazil's largest narco-trafficking gang, the Sao Paulo-based First Capital Command. Now, this all occurred because there were apparently some shifts in alliances among the major drug gangs in the country. Now, the First Capital Command apparently used to be allies with the Red Command, but now, since they are no longer allies, they were attacked while they were in prison. So that's how it kind of all occurred. Now, when it comes to the number of people who have died as a result of this riot, numbers are still a little shaky, but I'll give you what we have so far. Officials gave varying figures for the death toll from the disturbance at the Iadarola Penitentiary, with state officials at one point saying at least 60 inmates were killed. By Monday evening, Brazilian media, citing local police, put the number of dead between 50 and 80, which is quite a disparity. The Associated Press, meanwhile, said the state public security's secretary's office had revised its earlier death toll to 56. Now, here's what we do know. At least 6 decapitated bodies were discovered, and over 100 prisoners escaped in the aftermath of the riot. Now, crime in Brazil was obviously a huge story during the Olympics, and it seems like people have just kind of stopped covering it. But the crime is still a huge problem.
Well, they caught Ryan Lochte, so we assumed most of it was
It's all over now. But the incredible part about this story is this was one terrible, huge prison riot, which of course claimed the lives of so many people, but it was one of two. So the other prison riot happened in Antonio Trinidade, and 72 inmates actually escaped from the prison there because of the riot that took place. Some of the prisoners who escaped were taking selfies in the great outdoors after it took place. In fact, let me show you one of them. Let's go to the graphic. So those are both prisoners who had escaped. The one in the back actually was recaptured. The one in the front is still on the loose. His name is Brian Bremer. He is he's convicted of robbery. And so he's still out on the loose. Authorities are looking for them. But
hopefully he'll keep updating his social media.
It's just crazy.
Make it a little bit easier to track him down.
It's crazy.
Closely following his Instagram story.
Apparently he had been updating his social media while he was in prison, which of course he's not allowed to do. But somehow, of course, inmates manage to smuggle certain paraphernalia into the prison, regardless of whether it's allowed.
Yeah, wow, that's a lot of, regardless of whether it's the low or the high estimate, that's absolutely devastating. And I think a lot of people, we see this sort of thing happen in Latin America and South America from time to time, and I think people look at it and say, well, how the hell could it possibly be that bad? When we have gangs in our prisons as well. And when you hear, they give details about some of the particular prisons that were afflicted by this, where the first one happened, where it's now holding 3 times as many inmates as it was designed to.
Exactly. And
it has the staff scarcely more than what it was originally supposed to.
Exactly. So what you're seeing is, this huge increase in inmates, but you see the staff staying the same. In fact, just to give you the numbers, the number of inmates has grown about 80% in the last decade. So more than 600,000 people are imprisoned, but staffing levels have not kept pace. And so a lot of these prisons are full to the brim. They don't have the staff necessary to ensure that people don't smuggle weapons or cell phones or drugs into the prison. And then you have prison riots becoming a regular part of the justice system there. And so now politicians are saying, okay, we realize this is a big problem. We're now going to allocate money to combat it. But this is a symptom of a much broader issue. And that broader issue involves extreme poverty. It involves drug policy that simply doesn't make sense. And so, with the United States and how it pushes for a prohibition on various drugs, you have to keep in mind that a lot of the countries that we give foreign aid to we would refuse to give them foreign aid if they don't follow suit with our drug laws. So if they legalize drugs, you know, our government isn't so cool with that. And so our drug war has actually spilled into a lot of other countries, especially Latin American countries.
Yeah.
Now, the extent to which that impacts Brazil, I'm unsure, but I know that it has something to do with it. And then poverty, of course, has a huge role in what's happening in Brazil. But something needs to change. I mean, you can't have prisoners out on the loose like this.
Devastating.
Yeah. So that's happening in Brazil, and we'll update you guys with more information as the story develops. But yeah.
Well, it seems like some of the prisoners, despite their seemingly amazing coordination with gangs on the outside, are a little bit foolish when it comes to publicizing their whereabouts. And so it might, like I was joking before, but it might actually make some of them easier to catch in the future.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, look, a lot of criminals aren't necessarily the smartest people on the planet.
Yeah,
right?
Once they start checking in on Foursquare, some like restaurants and stuff like that, they're gonna snatch them up.
I know, but here's the thing. Finding them is one thing if you have enough staff or if you have enough people necessary to go out there and look for these people, find them, bring them to justice. One of the biggest problems is they don't have enough people employed to deal with these types of issues. I mean, think about the crime in the favelas and how a lot of local authorities just kind of turn a blind eye to it, right? That's why the crime just continues to increase and problems keep coming up. I mean, they increased security and policing during the Olympics, but when you don't have a huge international event happening, what really goes on in Brazil? And I think we know the answer.
You can help build independent media. We're now doing fundraising to get 4 new investigative reporting teams out there and be the watchers on the wall. We're not going to let Trump get away with anything. We're not going to let the establishment get away with anything. You help us build it. TYTnetwork.com/go. Be part of the solution.